all of you to this wonderful event. It is an honor and a privilege to celebrate our alumni inductees into the Hall of Fame, as well as our distinguished alumni inductees. You are an illustrious and distinguished group, and as I like to tell our students, that even today they are the custodians of a legacy that goes back to 1884. And you provide concrete inspiration through your lives and achievements for everyone in this community, including our current students. Our students, because of the school, because of its legacy, and because of its future, knows that it is part of something special. And if you were to ask today's students, and I suspect they would say the same thing that you said when you were here as students, that there is no better school in any way, anywhere. So with that being said, I'd like to introduce Peter Rapp, a member of the Hall of Fame in class of 1964. And Peter, as you come up, I have a plaque for you because apparently when you were inducted into the Hall of Fame, we hadn't presented plaques at that time. So we will present you with that plaque.
That's what happens when you speak up, I guess. You know, I said, I was very envious to see these things, and I said, wow, we didn't get one when my class went in. So, look what happens. Is Harris on?
Yes.
Yes, I am.
All right, Harris, I heard you. I'm going to wait 1 second, I think, while the screen comes down. Is that correct, Mr. Brennan? So Harris's son is a really high-level young player who's been already working out with clubs in Europe. He's a young guy, freshman, sophomore in high school, I'm not sure, but a young guy, and they just flew in from Croatia last night or the night before, and he's in Washington, D.C. now, so his son can play again. So really a fitting opportunity for me to introduce Harris into our Hall of Fame. So the Academy has had a long history of fielding competitive teams and of having hard-working, skilled soccer players. Harris Hott and the 1990 team he co-captained with my son Peter will rank right up there with the best the school has ever seen. Harris's bio is impressive. 44 career goals at SIA, third highest total when he graduated. 35 assists as a 4-year starter. An Advanced All-Star his senior year, 2-time SIA MVP, a soccer scholarship to Division I Seton Hall University, at that time the Big East champion in '91 and a runner-up in 1992. And Seton Hall was also ranked number 8 in the country in Harris's sophomore year and a top 20 team in the 4 years he played there. But stats are only one measure of a great player. You needed to see Harris play in person, a ball-handling whiz. He had great dribbling skills, so much so that during a game as a freshman at Pingree, his teammates stood, perhaps in awe, and watched as he tried desperately to escape 3 opposing players surrounding him until he yelled help at the top of his lungs before losing the ball. He told me that he is sure that his teammates had a really good laugh about how this scared freshman reacted to that situation. Great goal scorers needed to be tough, and Harris, usually quiet, well, at least we couldn't hear anything on the bench. He played with an underlying ferocity, and when needed, his sharp elbows became part of his arsenal. But this tough-as-nails competitor had another side to him, as he showed when instead of walking the ball into an open net, he unselfishly passed to his teammate, Ray Dunn, who scored his only high school goal. As Harris told me, that play may have been one of the most memorable, satisfying moments of his high school career. It's now the fall of 1990. Co-captains Harris and Peter, along with the other determined freshmen, now turned seniors, were on a mission. After 4-10 and 3-17 seasons as freshmen and sophomores, this group had gone 11-5-1 the previous year, a team captained by Coach Mazzella and with midfielder Adrian Lanning on the roster, finishing 2nd and 3rd respectively in the ACIS and PSA leagues. The question was, how good would this 1990 team be? A 1-3 start was disappointing to say the least, but Harris and the team never got down, never doubted themselves. A comeback win over the Loyola School, 4-2, began a 12-game, month-long winning streak, which included in that streak a very dramatic 1-0 win over Packer Collegiate when Jason Carroll scored with 8 minutes to play. And that was before a very large Saturday crowd at SIA. And it also included a dramatic 3-2 penalty kick overtime win at Woodmere Academy, now known as Lawrence Woodmere, at their homecoming. Harris's do-or-die penalty kick was the clincher. We're now in playoff week for both the ACIS and the PSA leagues. Semifinals and finals. 4 pressure-packed games in 4 days. Tuesday and Wednesday started with a 5-0 PSA win and an 8-2 ACIS win in the semis. A few weeks earlier, our streak had been stopped by the number 8th ranked team in the state, Friends Academy, 6-2. We now face them again in the PSA finals, finally showing our amazing heart and desire, even though we lost 3-0. One more game left in the season and for our seniors. There was no Nice A's tournament then. The ACS finals against Packer Collegiate. Packer was tough, ready for revenge, and rested. They hadn't played 3 games in the week like we did. How important the human will and spirit is in life's endeavors clearly showed itself that Friday afternoon. Lucky to be 0-0 at half, our team was fatigued, sluggish, yet trying as hard as they could. Halftimes are usually spent discussing strategies. This time we talked about searching inside to somehow, somewhere, find the strength to raise their game another notch. The team was able to respond, and with 10 minutes left, Harris scored the only goal of the game, and SIA had its championship. My SI teams performed at the level our seniors led them to, and the 10 on that team, led by their co-captains Harris and Peter, was a prime example. Harris loved having his dad watch him play, and he always did everything he could on the field to make his dad proud. Mr. Hott passed away in June of 2014. I know he would be as proud as ever and beaming with pride as we welcome his son, Harris Hott, into the Staten Island Academy Hall of Fame, class of 2018. Congratulations, Harris. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thank you for everything. I appreciate your kind words. And first off, I just want to say thank you. Thank you to Mr. Rapp for your mentorship, always being a steady voice for our team throughout my high school career. You had a way of never allowing us to get too high when we were winning, and at the same time, never allowing us to get too low when we were losing. Those are some very important lessons that I still carry with me to this day in my everyday life. Next, I want to thank Mike Mazzella and the committee for inducting me today. I'm truly honored and humbled to have my name called on the stage at Howden Hall today, given all the tremendous athletes that have come through the doors of the school over the years. This is definitely a moment I would have never envisioned when I came into high school as a tall and lanky 9th grader back in 1987. Finally, I'd like to say thank you to all my teammates, friends, and faculty that made my 4 years at SIA some of the most memorable years of my life. Once a Tiger, always a Tiger. I put some of these words together while on a plane traveling back from Croatia a couple of nights ago, when my son was playing a few international friendly matches with the U.S. national team. He, ironically, is also entering the 9th grade in the fall as a tall and lanky kid as well. Along with the incredibly proud feeling that I had watching him play over there. There was one moment in particular that I will never forget, and it was during the national anthem ceremony prior to the first match, where I saw him standing proud with his hand on his chest while watching the flag wave. And for a quick moment, he glanced over at me and gave me a little smile, almost as if to say, "We did it, Dad." At that moment, I was so overcome with emotion that tears of joy filled my eyes like never before. I was so proud of what he has accomplished at such a young age and the bright future that he has ahead of him in a beautiful game that has run in my family's for generations. Also, it represented a sort of cherry on top moment of what has been an amazing run of the sport I've loved all my life. I've been a part of high school championships, club state championships, Big East championships, as well as playing in several NCAA tournament matches, along with plenty of personal accolades along the way. And I can truly say that I've been very blessed beyond words. And I thank God every day for what He's provided for us. In closing, I'd like to make a special mention to the two people that made it possible for me to ever walk through the doors of SIA, my mom and dad. They came to this country as immigrants almost 50 years ago, with two cases and not much more. Each of them worked 2 jobs as maintenance workers so that they could provide a better life for their kids, and through their indomitable spirits, ended up living the American dream. Unfortunately, they're no longer with us. Mom passed away in 2012, and Dad in 2014. Not a day goes by that I don't think about them and all that did for me and my siblings. They would have been incredibly proud to see this day. I love you, Mom and Dad. Thank you, SIA, and congratulations to everyone being honored today.
A tremendous leader and a 3-sport athlete, Peter Badenhausen was the heart and soul of what was called the day school's soccer, basketball, and baseball teams during his high school career. One of the day school kickers, Peter, along with his friends Laddie Merrick, Sid Pollard, and Brian Peoples, would go on to capture the MAPES Soccer Championship, a title that had eluded them since the mid-1930s. Referred to then as the Deniston Men after head coach and athletic director Bob Deniston, this team battled throughout the chill of autumn against such familiar rivals as Friends, Poly Prep, and the Collegiate School. Tattered clippings from the archive collection detail highlights from games where Badenhausen was the big gun for the localities, banging home 2 of the 3 goals as the leading goal scorer during his freshman and senior campaigns. On the basketball court, the Staten Island Advance recalls that even when the Franklin School Cagers gave the localities, love that term, a 63-44 trimming, it was Peter Badenhausen that put on a grand exhibition of set shooting and fast break scoring. One sports columnist wrote, "Big Pete controlled the backboards throughout the fray, and when he wasn't dunking in baskets himself, he was slipping the ball to his mate Pete Carroll on the side." Described by his peers and teammates as the Tigers' go-to player, he averaged 18 points per game as a junior and 17.1 points per game as a senior, finishing his career with 964 total points, a remarkable feat in an era when it was extremely rare to see a player approach the 1,000-point plateau. In 1950, the day school Cagers continued their lethal sweep of metropolitan schools with sparkling play by Pete Badenhausen, the Advance exclaimed. Now, in full disclosure, it should be noted that I am in fact related to the legendary Big Pete Badenhausen, and at barely 5'4", I think that pretty much only my appetite has ever been referred to as big. Not sure how the genetics failed me there, but I assure you I harbor no ill will, and I'm delighted to be here today to present this recognition in his absentia. As soon as the grass was green enough, Coach Iggy Darson, another man I want to know more about, put on his cleats and headed to the baseball diamond where Pete, normally a regular left fielder and pitcher when needed, was a career .320 hitter. When the Academy dropped baseball in favor of tennis during one year, he, not surprisingly, earned the spot of first singles and there outclassed his opponents in match play. A truly remarkable athlete. Peter decided to forego a college career in athletics and instead focus on academics at Hamilton College. There is little doubt, however, that as we celebrate the Academy Scholar athletes of today who somehow managed to do it all, that Peter Otto Badenhausen was certainly one of the first to embody this standard with apparent ease, command, and humility. It is my distinct pleasure to induct class of 1950s Peter Badenhausen into the Staten Island Academy's Athletic Hall of Fame.
I'd like to take a moment just to congratulate all of the newest inductees into the Athletic Hall of Fame and the Alumni Hall of Fame. You're truly an inspiration to us all. And like Harris said, I'm here to speak about soccer, but specifically to my really good friend and so missed, Jessica Calandra. Soccer offers us so many lessons in life, not just on the pitch, but far, far spread after that are all the things that happen. I'm going to take us back a little bit here. First, I must say to you, Jessica, class of 2009, I'm extremely humbled by you choosing me to speak this morning. On your behalf, it was such an honor to coach you. It's my privilege today to help take us back on that journey, not only as a soccer player, but as a person. And your attendance here at Staten Island Academy High School, all the way from Bayonne. Who would have thought it? So here goes, Jess. Many days I ask my players a very, very simple question. Why do we play? I love to hear the variety of responses, each one important as the other. Some say it's the competition that fuels their desire to play. Many say it's the camaraderie. They love being part of something greater than themselves, and it drives them to join a team here at SIA. Still others point to that thrill of victory. Keeps them coming back for more gameplay day in and day out. Even the agony of defeat can't keep them away from the game. Most, however, point to one very broad reason for playing the game, playing that sport. And we all know what it is. Passion. All that energy, all that sacrifice, all those reasons to play, it comes down to passion. Yes, most agree about passion. That burning hunger that never wanes. Sleep can't remove that burning hunger. We even dream about playing. Exhaustion can't replace it because the will to win and compete is everlasting. And we all know that every true athlete can't live without sport. And so we play. No doubt, Jessica Calandra reflects all of those aforementioned sentiments. Jess was the epitome of the scholar athlete. She truly was. She indeed was our role model on how to get things done in the classroom and on the fields of play. Jess, you were a superstar. You never even knew it. That was the greatest thing about you. I'm not overstating that fact either. Just ask anybody who watched this team play, and you would have agreed with us all. Jessica was a student with an unending academic capability. She worked hard in the classroom and on the field. You not only look at her college choice of Davidson in North Carolina as proof of her aspirations in the world of education. I'm so proud of you for that work. It was always first and foremost. Then there was the Jessica that brought fury and fire onto the soccer field. Now that's the Jessica we all know and love. There were days when I was in awe of your performances. I literally would stand there. Coaching no longer had to happen. We all just had to watch you. It was truly an honor to do so. You can see many things about Jess. She was graceful. And really graceful with the soccer ball. She was so talented, she never had to say a word on the field, ever. Not to an opponent, not to an official, not to anyone. Her game did the talking. Jess had a flawless technique. There are photographs in my office that still hang on the wall which show perfect form. If you want to go by later on and see it, I'll show you. They're up there. Her stride and balance is truly remarkable, and it's that rare balance between her play and her teaching of everyone else that really made our team better. I could go on and on about these statistics. The goals she scored, I don't have to. She was the best in the league, hands down. Going about all the assists, don't have to. She made everybody around her better. I could go on about the defense she had to play, because she would score the goal, then I'd have to put her back on defense so she could stop everybody else from scoring so we could win the game. And she did that. She gave us lots of W's. Simply put, Jessica did all that for one reason. She knew the team needed her. Her willingness to sacrifice, her readiness to put aside her own personal objectives was for the betterment of the program. And that's what also made you so great. Humility. She was humble. Yes, she was. But not her game. Jess was a shining star, and she put Staten Island Academy girls soccer program on the map. You did that. You put us on the map. She was a pioneer. She put the program on her back and carried us all the way to the top. I'll never forget it. I need to let you know how grateful we all were for your play, your support. But also, along the way, were your parents. And I need to let them know how grateful we are of them too, especially feeding those ravenous girls on the away bus trips. Those bagel sandwiches saved us all from certain starvation, because those Long Island trips, I don't know when the next time we're going to eat, and the girls really appreciated that. So thank you for all of those years of yummy food. Also, a quick shout out to former student athlete Tim Head, class of '99. One day we were out on the camp field, and it was the summer, and Tim Head came up to me and he said, "Hey, listen, there's this kid in Bayonne. She's the real deal. You gotta see her play. She belongs at Staten Island Academy." Boy, was he right, Jess. Because you were the real deal. You are the real deal. Little did I know then, but we all found out pretty quickly, that Jessica was the best thing that ever happened to Staten Island Academy girls soccer. Gives me chills just thinking about where she took us during her time here. I'm so proud of you, Jessica. You're the consummate representative of our sports program. Thank you for your class. Thank you for your relentless pursuit of excellence. Thank you for your desire to achieve. Most of all, for always showing the rest of your teammates how to win with grace. Tina Turner said it best in a song, and I'll repeat it here today. You're simply the best, better than all the rest. Thanks, Jess.
Thank you for those words, Ms. Crow, and good morning to everyone. Sorry, I need a minute there. I believe there are only a few places during our lives where we can truly call home. And when I walked through these doors today, I instantly had that same feeling I did the first year here at Staten Island Academy. I was home again. When something special happens, we sometimes don't realize how incredibly important and exceptional that time was until years later. That's when we look back and appreciate it. But from the first time I stepped on the field wearing that maroon and gold Academy jersey, there was a unique sentiment I had not felt before, a profound sense of pride. That same pride is being mirrored here as I accept this word today. The initial year of the return of the girls' soccer program, we had about 7 girls that never touched a ball before. Why did they play? To try something new, maybe. To make Ms. Crow stop hounding them to join so we'd have a team, maybe partly. But I think they joined because they felt that same pride in their school, and even more so, they believed in the true leader of that team, Miss Darlene Crow. Some of those girls that were just discovering the beautiful sport of soccer, 3 years later, went on to be part of a championship team. She started something so special, and we were able to watch it flourish. There are no words to describe what Darlene did for that team, but also what she means to me. I have adored the sport of soccer since I was a young child. But the passion and drive that Miss Crow brought and instilled in my teammates and I is unparalleled. A coach, a mentor, but above all, a true friend. Darlene, thank you for being one of the most influential people to me, not only as an athlete, but as a person. From the heartbreak of devastating losses to the pure undiluted joy of game winners, there was no one I'd rather share that 4-year journey with. I'm thankful for every single moment of it. A series of events led to my enrollment at Staten Island Academy, but the biggest catalyst in what I would call fate was my father's doing. We searched and interviewed at several different high schools, but as soon as we entered our tour of SA's campus, he turned to me and said, "This is where you belong." To this day, he says sending me was, and I quote, "the best decision we ever made." He helped me find my love of the game, and with him and my mother's continuous support, I never let it go. From the age of 5, my father did miss a game. Upwards of 100 games at the academy, thousands upon thousands upon games in my career, he didn't miss a single one. Each time praising me for what I accomplished, but also continuously challenging me to be better, a better playmaker, a better scorer, more importantly, a better leader to my teammates. That sort of guidance molds a person to never settle and always strive for more, qualities that I've tried to take with me and form the backbone of who I aim to be. The days of him watching games and puffing on his cigar on the SAA picnic tables and nauseating the cross-country team in the process might be over, but to this day, I still find myself looking for him in the crowd. I'm blessed that my best friends and family are one and the same. My little brother Jimmy, SAA class of 2015, was always my #1 fan growing up and has been by my side ever since. Thank you to my mother for always urging me forward and never letting me doubt myself, always supporting and loving me unconditionally. A profound thank you to my entire family for making my dreams their dreams. Both of my parents realized how incredibly special Staten Island Academy was from that initial visit, but it was only a glimpse of the full scope of what the Academy offered. An intensely personal, small, close-knit family where students can develop their best selves in all facets. Brilliant, passionate, and caring mentors like Mr. Roger Ahern come few and far between, and I was lucky and forever grateful to always have his guidance and support off of the field as well. It's that nurturing environment that has allowed the development of so many exceptional individuals. To be recognized here today with so many extraordinary student athletes is an honor I could only dreamed of. I hold the memories of my time on SAA soccer field so closely to my heart because they were truly some of the happiest of my life. I love the game and my teammates. I love competing. I love winning for a school that has done so much for me. The biggest thank you to my teammates who shared those incredible 4 years with me and all the girls that played since that have continued to allow the team to flourish. It is a true privilege to be here. Thank you to the Hall of Fame Induction Committee for allowing me to be part of Staten Island Academy's history, and always the beloved SIA faculty for nominating me. I'm humbled to be part of this outstanding group and forever proud to be an SIA alumnus. Thank you.
It is truly, it's truly a pleasure to introduce our next inductee, Garrett Carpenter, class of 2004. Garrett was a 4-year, 3-sport athlete at the Academy, playing soccer, basketball, and golf. And golf he did. At the Academy, aside from winning multiple MVP awards, Garrett won the New York State Independent Schools Golf Championship at the Concord Resort's Monster Course with a score of 72. As a 16-year-old, he qualified for the Metropolitan Open Championship at Wingfoot Golf Club in 2002. When Garrett qualified, the Staten Island Advance reported that he was the youngest Staten Islander ever to accomplish that feat, and perhaps the youngest in the Met area. Garrett won an International Junior Golf Tour event at Metedeconk National Golf Club in 2002 and qualified for the inaugural MGA Carter Cup at Baltusrol Golf Club in 2003. A few courses not so bad when you're that young to play, believe me. All of these accomplishments led to Garrett playing at Division I Rutgers University in 2005, and he then transferred to Muhlenberg College, where he was a 3-year varsity letter winner, 2-year captain, and was named to the Centennial Conference sportsmanship team. Garrett graduated from Muhlenberg College with a Bachelor of Arts in Business Administration in May 2008. On the PGA Tour, the Payne Stewart Award is given to a player whose values align with the character, charity, and sportsmanship that Stewart showed. This includes respect for the traditions of the game, commitment to uphold the game's heritage of charitable support, and professional and meticulous presentation of himself and the sport through his dress and conduct. One burning image of Garrett in my mind has nothing to do with winning tournaments or shooting low scores. Did I think he was destined for a career in golf? Absolutely. When Garrett was in 8th grade, his Halloween costume was a tribute to Payne Stewart, who had tragically died in a plane crash just 2 weeks before. When he walked into school that day with knickers and a flat cap, I knew he possessed a respect and appreciation for golf's history and traditions that would guide him to great successes in the game. It is simply a joy to see him following his dreams. Presently, Garrett is a PGA of America Class A golf professional, a designation he earned in February 2013, and one that formalizes his expertise in teaching the game and in the business of golf. Currently, he is a PGA assistant golf professional at Canoebrook Country Club in Summit, New Jersey, after serving in the same capacity at Bayonne Golf Club from 2009 to 2016. And Garrett can still play, having garnered first, second, and third place finishes in New Jersey PGA assistant tournaments. He is working towards his ultimate goal of becoming a PGA head golf professional or director of instruction. In addition to all of his duties as a golf professional, Garrett is also currently planning a wedding. He'll be marrying his fiancée Nicole this August. Congratulations to you both. So Garrett, for all of your accomplishments here and beyond, and for the honor you have brought and continue to bring to our school, it is truly my privilege to welcome you to the Staten Island Academy Athletic Hall of Fame.
Thank you, Mr. Aquilano. First, I'd like to thank the selection committee. It is a great honor to be inducted into the Staten Island Academy Athletic Hall of Fame. I'd also like to thank my family, my mom, my dad, my brother Jordan, my grandparents, my Aunt Liz, and my fiancée Nicole. Looking back now, after graduating 14 years ago, I realize what a special place SIA is, and how lucky I am that my family provided me with the opportunity to attend SIA for 13 years. The dedication and passion that the faculty at SIA have for what they do and the students they teach are truly what make this a special place. The relationships formed and experiences during my 13 years have been incredibly influential in making me the person I am today. Athletics have been and continue to be a huge part of my life, for me and my family, and something I've always taken pride in. My dad played baseball at the University of Florida and professionally. My brother Jordan won the Staten Island Amateur in golf, and my cousin is currently playing in the NHL Western Conference Finals for the Vegas Golden Knights. These are accomplishments that I'm proud of and that motivate me to be the best athlete I could be. Reflecting on my years at SIA since I graduated in 2004, Some of the best memories I have are with my teammates and coaches. The bus rides with Mr. Shanley, driving the golf team up to Van Cortlandt Park and to the Concord for the Nice Ace Championship were some of the best times with friends and teammates like Dom DiMarzo, Frank Martingano, and Mike Clementi. Mr. Rapp teaching us the 2-1-2 and 3-2 zone in basketball and life lessons on the soccer field, and staying after practice to kick free kicks with teammates and friends like Bharat Sithian, Albin Laika, Vikram Rao, and Matty DiMarzo are memories and friends that I'll have forever. I'll always remember the intensity and passion Mr. Mazzella has for basketball. Having the basketball team run the hills around campus to get in shape for the season, and teaching me the importance of dribbling and shooting left-handed. And talking with Mr. Aquano about Phil Mickelson's first win at the 2004 Masters. These are valuable memories from my athletic career at SIA. My experiences here, both academically and athletically, and the role athletics has played in my life, gave me the drive I needed to pursue a career in golf. Getting a degree in finance from Muhlenberg College and becoming the captain of the golf team gave me the leadership skills I needed to become a PGA professional. I've heard the quote, "Find something you love doing and you'll never have to work a day in your life." And I've been fortunate enough to be able to make a career out of the game I love. I've worked at Bayonne Golf Club for 10 years, and I'm currently a PGA assistant professional at Canoebrook Country Club. The best part of what I do is teaching and promoting the game of golf. I'm inspired by the memories of the teachers and coaches here at SIA. I want to thank the faculty and staff and my family for their love and support and for encouraging me to pursue my passion for athletics. Thank you.
It was a hot August morning in 1986 when a young boy, much slimmer and in much better shape than the middle-aged man speaking in front of you today, tried to find his way to the Staten Island Academy soccer field. I had been dropped off in the front circle because my father didn't know there was a back parking lot, and I worked my way to the fence along Toad Hill Road, going past the pool area in order to get to the field. As I approached the soccer field, I noticed a girl about 100 yards away, juggling a soccer ball effortlessly, and then somehow balancing the ball on her foot, then her forehead, and then the back of her neck. This is my first recollection of Adrian Lanny, as someone who could do things that I had absolutely no ability to do. Now, I was already a terrified freshman, just hoping not to embarrass myself on the first day of practice for the boys' soccer team. And as I approached this girl, I was hoping she was a member of the Brazilian national team, or perhaps a very young-looking coach. I remember thinking that if Adrian is the caliber of player that they have at this school, then I have no shot at making this team. So practice starts, and I'm trying not to get run over by seniors, and I realize that Adrian is practicing with us. It turns out the academy doesn't have a girls' team, and it also turns out that she's a freshman, just like me. But she's no intimidated freshman, and she's certainly not intimidated playing against boys. In fact, she's going head-to-head with upperclassmen that I want no part of on the field. And then I find out that she was from some faraway place called Bayonne. The only thing I knew about Bayonne came from my father. Whenever my sisters and I were being too loud in the house, he would yell, "Stop making all that noise, you're waking up the kid in Bayonne." I looked at Adrian in astonishment and couldn't wait to tell my dad I had actually met that kid in Bayonne. And apparently every time I had woken her up, she had started practicing soccer. How else could she have gotten so good? It was obvious that Adrian was a special player, gifted to an extraordinary degree with dribbling and passing skills that allowed her to compete at the varsity level from her first day as a freshman. While I was destined for the JV squad, Adrian quickly earned a starting midfield spot and became the only freshman to make the varsity team that year. Adrian was definitely small by varsity standards, and she was playing with and against men who can maybe outrun her and who were definitely physically bigger and stronger. And conveniently, their elbows always seemed to be right at Adrian's eye level, which is why a number of photos from those fall seasons show Adrian with black eyes. But no one ever outworked, out-anticipated, or outsmarted Adrian. Her ability to read and dissect plays, to be in the right place at the right time, and to play the ball perfectly to the right player, and just as importantly, at the right time, was simply incredible. She had Jedi-level skills, while her teammates and I were like those stormtroopers who just couldn't shoot straight. I learned so much from watching her that freshman year and picked up on so many nuances of the sport because I was undersized too, and I needed to understand how positioning and anticipating could compensate for a lack of size and physical strength. Luckily for me though, I had a tremendous growth spurt during my sophomore year as I went from incredibly puny to just plain small. And so I was able to be a teammate of Adrian's for our last 3 seasons. And our senior season, the school's first in the ACIS League, was certainly special as we finished with an 11-5-1 record. By that point, Adrian had established herself as a seasoned varsity player and was respected and I think even feared by a number of our opponents. I think Hall of Famers possess that quality. Both teammates and opponents respect them. And I think that Adrian was feared by certain players who knew she could beat them with skill, smarts, or both. I remember her freshman year when she would take the ball from an opponent or make someone look foolish with a clever feint or a start and stop dribble move. Fans would holler and make a fuss because a girl had embarrassed a boy on the field. But by her sophomore year, that had already become customary and expected. Gender wasn't a factor, and Adrian wasn't a girl playing on the boys' team. She was a soccer player, plain and simple. And trust me, she was a phenomenal player. She was so good, in fact, that she continued playing soccer in college, not surprisingly starting as a freshman at center midfield for Yale. Later, she played on the Cambridge University women's soccer team as she was getting her master's degree. Yale and Cambridge soccer, I'm probably sure there's a lot of intellectual trash talk during those games. Adrian, your soccer career is simply remarkable, even going back to when your father was not content to let his daughter be a cheerleader for the boys' soccer teams, and instead started a girls' league so that you would have the opportunity to play. It's why you still play today, and why I'm sure you take such joy in watching your kids, Susanna and Theo, play. And of course, soccer is what brought you and your husband Wes together, as you both played on the Yale Law School intramural soccer team. But I can't say Adrian was just a soccer player because she was so much more. She was a top student in our class, and as a number 2 student in that class, I can say that she was number 1 by a wide margin. And she actually excelled in a number of academy sports. In tennis, she played first singles in her junior year before switching to softball because she preferred team sports. There she played shortstop, which as most of you know is one of the most important positions on the team. During soccer season, she would also pitch in and run on the cross-country team when they didn't have enough runners. And of course she qualified for the state meet. Perhaps the one sport in which I could beat Adrian was basketball, and while she claims that she wasn't very good, of course she made the varsity team as a freshman, but then she made the very wise move to become the boys' varsity scorekeeper during her senior year, and that's when my team had the best season in academy history. So you see, excellence just follows Adrian. We could be inducting her into the Academic Hall of Fame, the Distinguished Alumni Hall of Fame, or the Athletic Hall of Fame, because certainly she belongs in all of them. Adrian, it's such an honor for me to welcome you into the Athletic Hall of Fame. You were one of my closest friends during our 4 years at the Academy, even though you beat me out for the top scholar in the class for all 4 years. And even though I couldn't hold a candle to you on the soccer field. Few people can say that they were pioneers in a particular field or activity, but you certainly can. You gave girls in our school the courage to play on boys' teams, but certainly none of them could play like you. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Adrian Lynn.
So thanks, Mike, for that incredibly flattering introduction. Some of my greatest memories from SIA are whiling away free periods with Mike and his friend John Young. We should have been studying, but those were very good days. So I'm honored to be here today. I want to thank my mom and my uncle for coming. My husband is back home in Massachusetts taking our kids to their various soccer games this weekend. And becoming a soccer parent has really made me appreciate all the more the many hours my parents, and particularly my late father, spent driving me to practices and tournaments so that I could play at a high level. My experience playing, especially soccer, at the Academy was just an incredible experience for me, and playing with all the boys really elevated my game, including Mike, also Coach Rapp's son Peter, who was on the team, and actually my signature move I learned from Peter Rapp. So it was a wonderful experience, and also Harris Hott as well, who was just the true Jedi Master in my years at SIA, I would say. So we're here to celebrate excellence, and pursuing excellence is an important part of what makes us human, and I'm very honored to be a part of this distinguished group. But when I think about my time at SIA, what I appreciate most about my experience playing sports is how the athletic program embodied the school's values.
As Mike mentioned, I was the only girl on the varsity soccer team, and this was completely unproblematic. At no point was I made to feel unwelcome by members of the team or treated any differently by any of the students. At the time, I don't think I appreciated how extraordinary that was. Coach Rapp, the teachers, the captains, the players, including Mike Mazzella and Harris Hott, created an incredibly positive culture on the team and in the school. And that culture contributed to what I consider to be the most valuable aspect of the school's approach to extracurriculars: the commitment to encouraging widespread participation and exploration rather than early specialization. So over the course of my 4 years at SIA, I participated in 5 different sports. I also worked on the school newspaper and was even involved in a school musical one year, despite having no prior experience at all. Now that kind of experience is unheard of in the public high school up in Massachusetts, where I live now. Kids are encouraged to specialize from an early age in a particular activity if they are to have any chance of pursuing it in high school. My daughter started having professional soccer coaches with English accents at about age 8. So the freedom to try out new things and to get out of your comfort zone and the culture of including everyone are a big part of what makes SIA special. I feel very lucky to have gone to SIA, and I'm honored to be part of the Athletic Hall of Fame. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Although our next group of honorees are not being inducted into the Athletic Hall of Fame, they are clearly game changers. Our distinguished alum being inducted today demonstrated tremendous leadership and exemplary service to others, embodying what we believe is the true Academy way. Scholarship, leadership, and service are attributes we continue to value and instill in our Academy students each and every day. Over my 23 years here at Staten Island Academy, I have had the privilege of teaching to, learning from, working with, and getting to know successful, distinguished alumni from this amazing institution. This being our first year of officially inducting alumni under the umbrella of distinguished, it was no wonder that our committee struggled with nominating only 10 graduates. No doubt that in our 134-year history, the original working list was impressive, not to mention lengthy. It was even more difficult for the group to select only 3 to induct this afternoon. However, after you hear about each of these amazing gentlemen, it will no doubt surprise you that the committee voted unanimously to induct each of them into the distinguished alumni. From Gill's goodies, to particle accelerators, to underwater photography, these fine men have set the bar high for the many Academy graduates who have followed them and the many more to come. This is why today we are enormously proud to present to you Staten Island Academy's class of 2018 distinguished alumni. Thank you.
Today, it is my honor and my pleasure to introduce Gilbert Parmalee, class of 1950, and to welcome him back to the Academy. After today's induction, Mr. Parmalee will be the first member of SIA's Athletic and Distinguished Alumni Halls of Fame, and I cannot think of anyone more deserving. No strangers to firsts, Gil's professional career is replete with game-changing events and innovations. Over his 50 years at ABC, ESPN, and NBC, Gil created new formats pairing sports celebrities and broadcasters, gave relevance to statistics, and introduced the now standard "a note per game per show." Doing research for the likes of Frank Gifford, Howard Cosell, and Chris Berman, Gil provided them with the data that one writer noted made them sound so much smarter. No doubt, Gil's affinity for statistics of all kinds has contributed to the data-driven managing you see in Major League Baseball today, with its OPSs, SVOs, QSs, TOBs, and pitch counts. I don't know what all those are, by the way. Just a visionary throughout his career, he is also likely the first Academy graduate to win an Emmy. Ironically, Gil's alma mater, William & Mary, launched a broadcasting program the year after his graduation. I do have to note, in light of all these firsts, that Gil was not the first member of the Parmalee family I came to know. As a freshman at Kenyon, I met a confident, good-natured Jim Parmalee, Gil's nephew. And who could have guessed on then a humid night in Gambier, Ohio, that I would have the opportunity to celebrate another Parmalee today. After a short visit to the Academy's archive room, I soon realized that Gil was a special student as well. Following the footsteps of his father and older brother at SIA, Gil distinguished himself in the hallowed halls of Academy Place. Traveling from 8 Harvard Place to St. George every day, Gil was active in student government, notably the vice president in his senior year, in dramatics, and of course sports. Gil is described in the yearbook as outspoken and was known for his laughter. On the class chart, it notes that Gil was, quote, brought up by a radio and wanted to be a sports announcer, foreshadowing his long and distinguished career in journalism. I did pause when I saw that his, quote, pet aversion was the Yankees, but hopefully Gil's 50 years of broadcasting has helped correct that one small misguided flaw. The class of 1950 totaled 17 members when they graduated on June 9th, and the Academy must have been a truly special place to nurture Gil and his 2 other classmates honored today. I would love to know why they dedicated their yearbook to Alicia Darson and to hear stories about Coach Iggy Darson, Student Council Advisor Leslie Bissell, and Quill moderator Marilyn Mitchell. Next to Gil's picture in the class of 1950 yearbook is a quote from Robert Browning. It says, "How good is a man's life? The mere living. How fit to employ all the heart and the soul and the senses forever enjoy." No doubt, a fitting quote to describe Gil at the age of 18, Browning's words still resonate as we celebrate this legendary Academy graduate, a man whose life and career have been all about heart, soul, and joy. So it is my honor to welcome Gilbert Parmalee, class of 1950, to the Distinguished Alumni Hall of Fame. Congratulations.
What an honor and a thrill for me to be back on this campus after departing from it with Pete 75 years ago for the St. George Upper School, where I believe it was that Dr. Peoples joined us. Fact is, if you would have told me back then that 75 years or so later that Pete and I would return in 2018 to be honored so magnificently, my response would have most likely been, "Are you kidding me?" To return for such a prestigious occasion is so incredibly generous, heartwarming, and exciting for me. It's truly flat out off the charts. And when Teresa told me John would also be honored alongside me with an inaugural induction into the Special Hall of Fame wing, as I call it, together with the late John Wenzel, my questionable memory recalled an event our sophomore year involving John here with our geometry teacher, Mrs. Dukeshire, that absolutely for me, as events have turned out, served as a mere harbinger of things to happen for him. You see, John was averaging a C or C- grade at the time, as I recall it, as mid-year exams approached. Even back then, he was extremely bright, hardly a C student. So John, rather brazenly, I suspected at the time, reportedly approached our math teacher with this bizarre proposition. If he scored a 95 or better on the mid-year exam, would she give him an A for the course when midterm grades were handed out? She agreed. Turns out his brazenness was anything but. For me, he achieved a 95 or perhaps even 100. That I don't remember. What I do remember, though, is that she gave him that A, and I strongly suspect John never looked back, carving the brilliant career that brought him back to Dongan Hills this morning. Well done, John, and congrats. Interestingly enough, John and I indirectly connected several years ago, though he didn't know it until this very minute. For my sports career demanded my reading publications like Sports Illustrated weekly. So it was several years ago, as I was doing that reading homework, that I reached the back page, and in my utter disbelief and astonishment, staring back at me was the face of one Dr. John Peoples, whose Chicago work entailed an element germane to my field of sports. But to be honest with you, John, I didn't understand a single word in the article. So never mind, for as I mentioned, we had connected indirectly, only you never knew it. Now, a few months ago, Teresa asked would I be willing to write a personal reminiscences piece for the Reflections magazine focused on my days in St. George. One thing I penned was the sports final 2 years here, which were flat out phenomenal, which I know Pete and John will immediately recall. Specifically, I wrote of the unprecedented turnabout our soccer team underwent beginning with Game 2 of our senior year. For Game 1, we had lost 4-1 to Riverdale, a game marking the debut of classmate Hap Merrick minding the score, in net as I called it, at his place at left wing taken by, you guessed it, John here. And in our final 2 years, that opener was the last soccer game we ever amazingly lost during the 20-something games that we played. Then you have to be right up there with the greatest ever posted by our soccer program, as recently as Coach Rapp discussed moments ago with this past edition. I suspect Coach Rapp could tell you all more about that, though. This season, that season was really something off the charts. Now that team defensively was led by Hap in goal, Hap Merrick, and Pete Carroll, a remarkable fullback, who converted penalty kicks blindfolded. And it was Pete and John's younger brother Brian, here today, who drove the offense when Pete wasn't being gifted with his trademark penalty kicks. This machine, coached by Iggy Darson, was arguably the best soccer team then in the state of New York, private school or public school. We flat out were that great, possibly the best ever here. Following that first June Friday in 1950, the class obviously went in many different directions, but old friend Pete and I remained connected to the extent that on September 26, 1959, we were driving to St. Peter's Church in New Brighton, where within 1 year I would be married to another alum, Ann Madden, class of 48, the dream girl of my life forever. Now Pete was driving, for he was best man. Nor were the two of us the only SIA grads headed to St. Peter's that Saturday afternoon. For also ushering on my two older brothers, Russell and Rome, Hap Merrick, as mentioned before, Ann's maid of honor, an older sister, Joelle, class of 46, and my mom, Helen Bogart Parmley, who graduated years before that. All Academy grads, and my dad, also from this school, had passed 13 months ago, so he was still indirectly represented as my dad. Though the world of sports remained my passion and business objective, it took some 10 years to break into the electronic sports broadcasting field. It was that extremely difficult, and I had started from square one. But it was in 1969, therefore, that the first member of the NFL Giants' Three Musketeers, as I called Pat Summerall, Kyle Rote, and Frank Gifford, who would beat Pat, hired me as a sports writer freelance at WCBS, filling in quite often for Mike Palmer, a good friend of mine, and his regular weeknight sports, which produced the cast every half hour. It was hardly a day at the beach, but I didn't give a hoot, for my foot was in the door and I was a happy camper going forward. Which next brought me to NBC Sports, Kyle Rote, for whom I did some sports writing for a football newspaper he had also established. Finally, shortly thereafter, Frank moved from CBS to ABC in conjunction with the NFL's package moving to that network, Monday Night Football. He hired me to specifically write, produce, and craft his weekday ABC radio network show, a combination that lasted for 6.5 years. He simultaneously became the voice of ABC's Monday Night Football and the radio show being part of the package, which also included weeknight sportscasts on WABC TV. From the get-go, Frank and I developed a solid work arrangement that found me covering all sorts of New York events, one of which happened on June 1973. This was the most incredible sports event I ever covered or even attended. The venue wasn't too far from here, over in Elmont, Queens, at Queenstown. This was the home of Belmont Raceway, where the traditional, renowned third jewel of horse racing's Triple Crown for 3-year-olds was to be held that second Saturday of June. Featured was the winner of the first 2 legs of this incredible journey, a colt by the name of Secretariat. In each case, by a mere matter of handful of margins, were his wins. Nevertheless, Big Red, as he was known, was the prohibitive favorite to complete the sweep of the Triple Crown that day. I arrived early at Belmont. It was a fine day, setting up shop immediately behind a tiny gate that was situated directly at the finish line. So at approximately 6 p.m. that early evening, the field was off and running, and it took little time for Big Red to grab the lead at the far side of the track, which I could barely see. So when he finally showed the field the way into the home stretch, which I could see, that he was some 6 or so lengths in front of, with Canadian jock Ron Turcott, now putting the pedal to the metal, with his head lead increasing with every brilliant stride that Secretariat took. I also was realizing I was watching, without question, one of the greatest athletic performances of my life, and a 3-year-old animal was doing the duty. For when Secretariat's nose soon touched the finish line, he had just set a world record in a Triple Crown race, winning by 31 lengths. And Gilly Parnley, the former Staten Island native and Staten Island Academy grad, was no more than 30 feet away from the victor of what today still remains, because of its decisiveness, the greatest horse race ever. For the record, I was also the closest human being, literally, to Secretariat as he won, who wasn't directly connected with a race than any of the other 60 to 70,000 cheering fans and media personnel inside the Belmont Stakes Cathedral. Unquestionably, the greatest sports thrill of my life still is. For me, there were many major sports events I covered, which off the top of my head would include the October 1977 World Series game at Yankee Stadium, where Reggie Jackson clubbed his 3 Babe Ruth tying Series 3 home runs. Same venue, where Muhammad Ali defeated Ken Norton to retain his heavyweight title crown a few years thereafter, where at the press conference, the only thing separating me from the great one was my mic. I had that great of an interview position when the great one held his post-fight conference that night, presser that night. I mention these events because on every Gifford radio show I produced, there was sound from all interviewees. 90% of them I secured. But during the football season, with Frank doing Monday Night Football, I arranged on Fridays for a key figure from that game to be interviewed by Frank over the phone, which was played on the following Monday with Frank out of town at that city. During our 7.5 years together, 2 or 3 days a week, my telephone would ring, and an all-familiar voice of Howard Cosell would be on the other end, querying, "Gil, what's been going on in sports today?" I'd promptly give him the rundown, and incredibly, he'd mentally fashion a show that followed Frank's, as I recall, but on a different ABC radio network. He'd record his show off the top of his head, a truly remarkable talent. Trouble was, the Cosell show never had sound the way I made certain Frank's had. Another example of why Frank Gifford was without a doubt the best boss I ever had, for he gave me free rein on his show as its producer. Fact was, if you couldn't get along with Frank Gifford, you really couldn't get along with anybody. So given that scenario, I probably shouldn't have been that surprised when one afternoon in our 6th season together, ABC Radio's network program director, my boss, Bill McCallum, called me into his office with the news that Frank Gifford Sports, according to the latest rating survey, was the #1 radio sports show of its kind in the entire country, having now passed Howard's Speaking of Sports radio show. That piece of news, and not the 2 Emmys I subsequently received from ESPN in the early 21st century, were the highlight of my career, because I worked on SportsCenter with some 100 other folks en route to my Emmys, but the radio honor involved just Frank and I. Game, set, match. But as the saying goes, all good things must end, and in our 7th year, and the ABC Corporation giving Frank the green light to vacate his radio show to focus exclusively on network and local TV shows and network-driven public appearances, which he made all sorts of times with speeches and things of that nature on Monday night, football. And it had grown by leaps and bounds, requiring this exclusivity. However, by then I had begun a closed-circuit production for some 1,500 network radio stations that kept me extremely as busy as when Frank and I were together. However, after 3 or more years of doing this, the time came for me to have a solid dose of family time, and with this in mind, I moved us to Connecticut in late February of 1981. That soon led to ESPN and its signature show, SportsCenter. That became my home away from my suburban home, and by the end of my career that ended in Bristol, its home, I had Miami, and with my career wrapped with a bow around it. In closing, I would be grossly negligent, not to mention the role of late wife Anne, which she played in my life. Fact is, I wouldn't be here this morning, being so incredibly honored, without the devotion and complete dedication to her literally raising our 2 incredible sons, Jack, who's here, and David, to free me with the time to incredibly grow whatever success I achieved. Jack and grandson, and his grandson Bill, as I said, are here. My son David returned late last night from a business trip to Germany, and living in Boston with his family, absolutely could not make the trip from there, when I call the Northeast Corridor's capital. As this family is close, he would otherwise be here, believe me. So it was back on that traditional first Friday in June of 1948 that Anne's class graduated on the heels of the valedictorian address which she gave to the student body and the folks who came to see their children graduate, and with an address which she so well gave, and copying of baseball slang. In fact, with her speech, she hit a grand slam home run. Anne's next 4 years were at Rosemont College, a small Philadelphia school, majoring in English. As she was truly a brilliant writer, a few years later, Anne was a no-brainer hire by a bishop from Rochester, New York, by the name of Fulton Sheen, who was in the process of developing the first religious television show that was carried by New York's WPIX, as I recall the call letters. She wrote in the bishop's promotion department for the show, which absolutely paved the way for the greatest of all evangelists, the late Reverend Billy Graham. This was where I found Anne, as we commuted from Manhattan to the island on the Staten Island ferry, of all things. No kidding. But anyhow, as mentioned earlier, we married and living happily ever after. For the record, I met Bishop Sheen, finding him to be the fine man he was, without a doubt. But in retrospect, who could have ever imagined a husband with somewhat of a storied career in sports, and his wife with such an illustrious career, graduating from the same school within 2 years of one another. Really, truly remarkable. Thank you so much for being here, and hopefully we'll be able to chat afterwards, assuming Teresa gives us the green light for that. Thanks again. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys. Do appreciate that.
Mr. Cowles, distinguished guests, friends, fellow alumni, just thanks everybody for being here today to celebrate. I actually usually speak completely off script, but in a moment you're going to know why I'm going to read this one. But I am going to go off script to say, boy, as a fellow alumnus, it is many times you're at events hoping the speeches will be shorter, and that if people get up and say, you know, I have 2 minutes or I have 5 minutes, even though they go beyond it. But I feel like everybody here is really in the moment and really respectful and honored to hear the distinguished people being honored today speak. And I'm amongst you in that crowd. So it's a great event. I spent a lot of my time lately raising money for Staten Island Academy. And I wish I could bottle what's going on here, because when people wonder the value of a Staten Island Academy education, from Mr. Parmalee to Pete Rapp and Mike Mazzella to Adrian and all those that have spoken today, I sit here and say, wow, just come and look. There's a lot to be valued. Before I introduce Dr. John Peoples, I'm delighted that we're joined by his brother, Brian, obviously a better athlete, and Brian's wife, Peggy LeRae, class of 1992. Thanks for being here as we celebrate John.
52.
52, thank you. See, I've worked so
Otherwise,
hard.
I'd be robbing the cradle.
So this past week, I had the opportunity to get Dr. Peoples on the phone on Wednesday, and I was just calling to see if I could set up a time to speak with him, but it turned out that it seemed like that moment would be the right moment. And I don't know what it was, John, if it was an hour or an hour and a half, but when I came out of that meeting and I saw Kim, who works with me at the office, she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I just got off one of the most fascinating calls, and I think I only understood 20% of what Dr. Peoples said." I've been feeling really bad about that all week, but when Gil Parmalee got up here and said he didn't understand it either, I'm feeling a lot better. So let's begin by understanding just a few of John's professional goals, and you'll understand there's something different going on here. He says to me things like, the goal is to discover the identity and properties of the particles that make up the universe and to understand the forces and interactions between those particles. How about to understand what went on in the early universe and how particle physics influenced it? Or perhaps just to understand the fundamental elements of matter in space and time. This was the light part of our conversation. I kind of thought I understood those a little bit. John Peoples graduated from Staten Island Academy in 1950. Did I get that right? Yes. His high school years were marked by an appreciation for SIA's small class sizes, motivated and talented faculty, and bright, energetic classmates. I did not know he was the wing on the soccer team. After all these years, though, John mentioned one faculty member that stood out, and that was Leslie Bissell, who I heard spoken of earlier, a fine arts major at Yale who was John's laudable science instructor at SIA. Bissell inspired John to pursue an education in the sciences. As an undergraduate at Carnegie Mellon, John switched from chemistry to earn a Bachelor's of Science degree in electrical engineering in 1955. His first post-baccalaureate job was with the Martin Aircraft Corporation, better known now as Lockheed Martin. During this 4-year stint, John took evening classes at Johns Hopkins to satisfy a fascination for physics. It's interesting because a lot of early grads spend their evenings going to the bars, but he was taking classes in physics at Johns Hopkins. In the fall of 1959, he entered Columbia University as a graduate student in physics. He earned an MA in 1962 and received a fellowship honor on the way to his PhD in 1966. Subsequently, he served on the faculties of Columbia University and Cornell University. To give you a sense of Dr. Peoples' work during these early years as a university professor and researcher, John was nice enough to share the following summary. I must preface that I have listened to John and I've read this at least a half dozen times, and well, you'll hear. During the period, John worked on 2 experiments at Brookhaven, which was Columbia University's physics lab. One searched for C violation in the decay of the muon, and the other measured the change asymmetry in the electrons and positrons emitted in the decays of the long-lived K to the 0. While at Cornell, he joined a Columbia University, University of Illinois, and University of Chicago collaboration that proposed a search for vector bosons, that's right, bosons, that decayed into lepton pairs using the wide-band photon beam, which the collaboration proposed to build at Fermi Lab. Stick with me here. After the beam was completed in 1974, a series of photo production experiments were carried out in the proton area. The first of these experiments measured J over psi and established that the J over psi was a hadron. The later experiments observed charm photo production. Please excuse me, John, but if I read the next 4 paragraphs as you wrote, detailing your technical work, I might have a dazed audience. You think? Yeah. So I will keep it lighter and hopefully give a reasonable account of your vast contributions and career highlights, though that is difficult. In 1972, Dr. Peoples joined the Fermi Lab staff and was appointed head of the proton area in 1973. For those who do not know, Fermi Lab is the United States Department of Energy National Laboratory specializing in high-energy particle physics. Fermi Lab's Tevatron was a landmark particle accelerator, which was almost 4 miles in circumference. In 1995, under Dr. Peoples' leadership, the discovery of the top quark was announced by researchers using the Tevatron. The Collide detector at Fermi Lab experimental collaboration studies high-energy particle collisions at the Tevatron, the world's former highest energy particle accelerator. The goal of which was to discover the identity and properties of the particles that make up the universe and to understand the forces and interactions between those particles. In 1980, Dr. Peoples joined the Anti-Proton Source Project, and in 1981 he was appointed Tevatron 1 project manager. He was responsible for the construction of the Tevatron colliding beam experimental areas. This project completed the transformation of the Tevatron to a proton-antiproton collider. When collider operations began in 1987, it was the highest energy particle accelerator in the world. Succeeding Nobel Prize-winning director Leon Lederman, Dr. Peoples was appointed as the 3rd director of Fermi Lab in July 1989, and he served in that capacity until July 1999. Under his leadership, not only was the top quark discovered and precisely measured for its mass, but also the main injector project was constructed, commissioned, and put into service. The main injector, together with other luminosity improvements that were initiated during John's tenure as director and completed by his successors, enabled the Tevatron to remain at the energy frontier of particle physics until the CERN Large Hadron Collider overtook it in 2011. For Dr. Peoples' leadership of the Tevatron 1 project and the steady increase in the performance of the Tevatron, the American Physical Society awarded him the 2010 Wilson Prize for outstanding achievement in the physics of particle accelerators. In 1990, John shifted his interest into astrophysics and initiated the Fermi Lab Experimental Particle Astrophysics Program through Fermi Lab's participation in the Sloan Digital Sky Survey. Dr. Peoples was appointed as the Sloan Digital Sky Survey Director in July 1998, and he continued in that role until July 2003. The Sloan Digital Sky Survey revolutionized astronomy through the advancement in large telescope imaging and spectroscopy. Not yet done contributing, John started the Dark Energy Survey and served as its first project director from 2004 through 2009. Ultimately, the DES collaboration will execute a 5,000 square degree multi-band image survey of the southern galactic cap and a 30-degree supernova survey. I can't even read this stuff. And I wrote it. The data observed by the DES collaboration will provide a deeper understanding of dark energy and dark matter. At lunchtime, John will absolutely sit with you and explain that. When I brought Dr. Peoples back to Earth during our lengthy interview, Dr. Peoples helped me to understand that his work has made significant contributions to many things we use in today's society, including the instrumentation used in MRI technology, our nation's ability to monitor from space other countries' energy endeavors, intentions, and weapons, the technology to refurbish our nuclear arsenal and to generate nuclear energy, the ability to safely test our nation's weapons of defense, and many great contributions to the field of computer science and to astronomy. Dr. Peoples is a fellow of the American Physical Society and the American Association for the Advancement of Science. He was elected vice chair of the executive committee of the Division of Particles and Fields of the American Physical Society in 1983 and served as its chair in 1984. He was elected vice chair of the executive committee of the Division of Physics of Beams of the American Physical Society in 1998 and served as its chair in 1999. He's a member of the American Astronomical Society. He was a member of the Department of Energy High Energy Physics Advisory Panel from 1976 until 1980, and again from 1984 through 1985. He was a member of the International Committee for Future Accelerators from 1990 to 97, and served as its chair from 93 until 97. He was the recipient of an Alfred P. Sloan Fellowship in 1970. He received this Distinguished Associate Award in 1995 from the Secretary of Energy for his work as Director of Fermilab and the Sloan Sky Collaboration. He also received the Distinguished Service Award from the Directorate for Mathematical and Physical Sciences of the National Science Foundation in 1999, and he received a 1999 Merit Award from the Carnegie Mellon Alumni Association. Mike Perricone wrote about Dr. Peoples' leadership at Fermilab the following: Fermilab's successes in exploring new particle physics in the 21st century will depend heavily on the new main injector, the new and unique antiproton recycler, and the extensively upgraded antiproton source. 3 machines whose origins can be traced directly to John Peoples. The 10 years of Peoples' directorship, 1989 to 99, spanned the entire main injector project, including the recycler, from concept to commissioning. His role went well beyond simple oversight. I would summarize John's role as being tireless and relentless, said Beam's division head Steve Holmes, the main injector project manager from its outset. John was so dogged on this thing, he made sure it was going to go through one way or another. Before becoming Fermilab's 3rd director, Peoples had served as a project manager for construction of the antiproton source from 1981 to 1985. He altered the concept of the accumulator and debunker rings to conform with the lab's high energy level of operation and guided the machine's completion through technical challenges and managerial nightmares. The antiproton source can accurately be described as a technological tour de force, said Jerry Dugan, part of the antiproton source design team, who later served as head of both the antiproton source and accelerator division. The one responsible for the leadership, the direction, and the inspiration of all of it was John Peoples. I think the main injector is really John's legacy to the laboratory, Holmes concluded. He understood its importance to the future of Fermilab and to the U.S. high-energy physics program. He never lost sight of where we were trying to go, and he supported us through good times and bad. Dr. Peoples, your contributions to our country through your applied mastery in physics, astrophysics, electrical engineering, and leadership are truly amazing. I am personally humbled by your brilliance and tireless lifetime of learning and service. It is my sincere honor to acknowledge Dr. John Peoples as one of Staten Island Academy's most distinguished alumni.
in the world.
You must have looked up a lot of things.
I was watching. Hey, John,
No, no.
will you please explain what he said?
I have to apologize a little bit. I don't think I was asked to make remarks. So, what I'd like to do is to thank you. This is really quite an interesting kind of honor. This has allowed me to come back to a place that was very different in 1948 or 46 or 47. I couldn't recognize anything we were driving by. The streets multiplied, they're smaller, so I didn't recognize, but it's very nice. And it was absolutely a delight, at least to hear of Peter Bodenhausen and to talk with Gilly. It's been a long time and very, very enjoyable. So I'll try to say a few things to assure you that what Gilly said about me was actually true. Didn't recall it, but I do remember I made this bet with Mrs. Dukeshire, or maybe it was Miss Dukeshire. I can't remember. That's too much of a detail to remember. That must be 75 years ago or so. At any rate, I got an A, but I was a very, very indifferent student. That wasn't the fault of the academy, because I'd gone to a public school, the same one that my mother went to. And my mother went to, it was a brand new school. They were finally building something out in Newdorp and those places. Otherwise it was all, not here, but in St. George. And the teachers eventually found some way of dealing with me. I somehow or other learned to read when I was about 3. I think that's due to my mother. I knew a little bit of arithmetic quite early on. So it caused a lot of trouble. If I paid attention, I might ask a question. So this is during World War II. The thing that you would call a middle school was actually 2 rooms, and they had 4 classes in it simultaneously. Now, there was another thing you did. I don't know whether they still do this sort of thing. Remember, there's a method of penmanship. So I not only learned to read very young, I learned to write. And you can't change. If a person is left-handed, it's damn hard to change them. So when the teacher was looking at me, when they weren't looking, so that's how I started. All right? So the academy helped. I don't think if you've been able to find Leslie Bissell today, we call him Bissell, by the way, not Bissell, but it was Leslie Bissell. He was actually a painter. He had a degree in fine arts from Yale, as they told you. But he would pay attention to the students, there weren't very many of them, and try to sort of give them each one that was sort of appropriate for that student. So it was a little hard to figure out what to do with me. But he did some things. And so in the senior year when you took physics, he decided to use a college textbook without calculus. And I'm afraid that I learned it rather quickly. I did very well on the final exam. Nobody else did, which is tragic. But it was fine for me. In fact, I was over-prepared at the Staten Island Academy. Somehow or other, information would be put into your head, and they never knew that something was coming out, or I was learning something. I was not an easy person to deal with. They used to have an effort system, and the bad thing was to get 3 threes. That means you didn't do anything. And this would happen frequently. But, at any rate, the second story that you told, I'm now trying to remember. That's why I'm going to do it first. The one with Mrs. Dukeshire. I'm trying to remember what the other one was also true. But at any rate, I would periodically function and do something. Otherwise, I was off in my own corner of the universe. The main reason I went to Carnegie Tech, now Carnegie Mellon, was that Mrs. Merritt, that's the wife of the headmaster, her sister was the dean of the University of Pittsburgh, which had just sort of made the transition of going bankrupt and being taken over by the state of Pennsylvania. And she thought she could look after me and maybe something good would happen. Well, I think the first week I was there, I went to if those of you who've been there, it's called the Cathedral of Learning. It's a building, it's on a rather good sized plot of ground, and it goes up about 500 feet. There's nothing that big otherwise. And it's sort of Gothic style architecture of the time. So I visited I see Skewis might have been her name, Sylvina Skewis. And I visited her once, and after that I went my own way and did all kinds of bad things. But I would periodically remember things. I know what the other one was. So back to Mrs. Dusha. She had a great impact on me. Plane geometry, which is Euclid's geometry, is really a remarkable thing if you think mathematically. I mean, it's just a few hypotheses, statements that you make in the beginning, and you can derive logically all of these marvelous things. It would be nice to have spherical geometry and those things. I learned those later. So that was a thing that stuck in my mind from the academy. And again, that's this gamble that Gilly told about. So when I got to Carnegie Tech, I arrived probably having a deeper understanding of mathematics and even physics and chemistry than most. But I knew nothing about grammar. Zero. In the public school I went to, the sort of the population that was trying to come up were largely Italian, and they were living in a place that nobody would ever give them a loan for another 50 years. But people build houses between the beach and, let's say, Richmond Road, which is a stupid thing to do, because it would flood periodically. But at any rate, it was difficult to deal with people that were, quite smart. So all the people in my class were quite smart. I think you will find that 4 of us, men, unfortunately, got PhDs. It was Paul Malloy, I think his was in political science, and Peter, I think, we all at the same school, Columbia. Peter in history, and me was physics. So I never quite knew where I was going, but the path I took, I was sort of lucky. But again, I'll come back. For a rather hopeless sort of student that looked really discouraging, the academy put enough stuff in there that when I started to pay attention to life, that it turned out rather well for me. And so it was a delight, and I also say it's a delight to be back, to see this place. It's very different than it was, 70 years ago. And I'm delighted to meet some of you, delighted to meet all of you, I hope. And so let me end by thanking you. I'm delighted. Victor did a very, very good job of describing it, so I won't attempt to explain it. So good day.
No, one is enough. They don't know where the camera is.
It's good afternoon now. Victor confessed to knowing about 20% of, or being able to understand about 20% of his conversation with Dr. Peoples. I was not able to speak with my inductee because unfortunately he passed away in 2008. But even if I had had that opportunity, I don't think I would have understood 5% of what he was saying to me. Another highly distinguished scientist, Dr. J. Lamar Wurzel, class of 1936. Now, it's my understanding that there is no member of the family here, or representative of the family, so I believe I can continue to mispronounce his name with impunity. But I believe it's Wurzel as opposed to Wurzel. I want to thank the Academy for allowing me the honor and the privilege to speak about Dr. J. Lamar Wurzel on the occasion of his posthumous induction to the Staten Island Academy Distinguished Hall of Fame.
I'll assume you read the pocket bio in the program, and you all know that Dr. Wurzel was one of the world's foremost geophysicists. I had to stop there because I had to look up what a geophysicist was because I didn't know. So that's how difficult it was for me. But in the interest of full disclosure, I have to point out that although as an Academy student, Dr. Wurzel served as editor-in-chief of our literary magazine, The Quill, the good doctor later admitted in a long oral history interview that he gave in 1996 that he had actually failed freshman English at Lehigh. Something else that's not apparent from the pocket bio, I had problems figuring out what to call my subject. His full name was John Lamar Wurzel, but no one called him John. His family called him Lamar, and everyone who ever worked with him called him Joe. I submit that it would probably take at least 2 or 3 people to achieve all that Dr. Wurzel was able to achieve in his lifetime. This is especially remarkable because as a child, Lamar, John, Joe, contracted rheumatic fever, and the resulting damage to his heart led the doctors to advise his parents that he would probably never live beyond the age of 18. The world that John Lamar Joe graduated into in 1936 was a world preparing for World War II and later the Cold War. And these are events that Dr. Wurzel's contribution would later influence. But I'm getting ahead of myself. While a young student at Staten Island Academy, a very young student at Staten Island Academy, Lamar was interested in the sciences and in building devices. One of the first things he fashioned as a young student was a Roman water clock. Not the kind of thing your average student does in the 4th or 5th grade. In the 1996 interview, alluded to earlier, Lamar names his most influential teacher at Staten Island Academy, a Mr. Merrill Cunningham. And Lamar says of Cunningham, quote, "I got interested in sciences through him to a large extent." Unfortunately, at that time, the only sciences taught at Staten Island Academy were chemistry and biology. Physics was not offered. This was the depths of the Great Depression, and I guess the Academy couldn't afford to hire a physics teacher. But physics wasn't offered, and that meant that Joe could not apply to MIT or Caltech because you had to have a year of high school physics in order to apply to those engineering schools. So he went to the library at Staten Island Academy, and he was reading through some college books, and he found out that there was an engineering program at Lehigh University, and they did not require a year of physics, so he applied there and was accepted, and that made all the difference. At Lehigh, Lamar met his mentor, Professor Morris Ewing, and the two of them had a lifelong career, more than 40 years working together, revolutionizing our understanding of the ocean floor. Always a tinkerer, Dr. Wurzel fashioned new and numerous sophisticated scientific measuring devices, resulting in ways to measure and monitor sound underwater, as well as new methods of underwater photography and new methods of detonating underwater explosives. For example, his work was central in monitoring the movements of Soviet submarines during the Cold War. His work was pivotal in locating the sunken U.S. nuclear submarine Thresher, an accomplishment for which he received a citation by the United States Navy. Finally, when Dr. Wurzel graduated from Staten Island Academy in 1936, very little was known about the oceans, which we all know cover 2/3 of the Earth's surface. His work resulted later in the mapping of the ocean's floors and brought us a much better understanding of the world in which we live. For these reasons, Staten Island Academy is proud to induct Dr. J. Lamar Wurzel into our distinguished Graduate Hall of Fame.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for joining us to honor this great school and of course the impressive graduates it helps to foster, namely the fantastic 8 men and women we honored today. Congratulations to all of our inductees. Thank you for all that you have done for Staten Island Academy and all that you and your legacy has left behind and will continue to do for our community through your hard work and the example you set for others. At this time, I would like to ask that each inductee and their presenter, as I call you up, to come and we can officially give you your award today. So if Caroline Crane could please come to the stage and receive the award for Otto Peter Bottenhausen, class of 1950. Darlene Crow, please come forward and present Jessica Calandra, class of 2009, with her award. Mr. Aquilano, please come forward to present Garrett Carpenter, class of 2004, with this award. Peter Rapp, class of 1964, will take this award, hopefully give it to Harris, or maybe get 2. Up to you. Congratulations, Harris Hott, class of 1991. And Mr. Michael Mazzello, class of 1990, would you please do the honors of awarding Adrienne Lanning, class of 1990, her award. Mr. Frank Crane, please come forward. And Gilbert Parmalee, please come forward to receive your award. Dr. Victor Avis, class of 1979, please come forward to present Dr. John Peoples, class of 1950, with his award. Mr. Daniel Masters Jr., class of 1971, please come forward and accept this award on behalf of J. Lamar Wozel, class of 1936.
I don't get to keep those, so I give them back to you.
Yeah.
I'll hold on to it.
Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. I now welcome you to continue our celebration over lunch in the Patrick Commons in Crow Hall. Thank you again.